Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio, so I'm back with my usual warning. Stop buying singles of Temporal Forces. Now, usual deal applies, of course. I am not your dad, unless you're Daisy, Ruben, or Archie, in which case it's weird you're watching this, but hi, thanks for supporting Daddy, I suppose. And you can do what you like. This is friendly advice on your old pal Wassy and is not intended as anything else. I'm not saying don't buy Temporal Forces. No, obviously not. I have been spending the last few months telling you that Temporal Forces is an awesome new set. Temporal Forces has got a bunch of ridiculously good cards in, and it is going to completely shake up the metagame in a fantastic way. Temporal Forces is going to go down, I believe sincerely, as one of the best Scarlet and Violet sets. Temporal Forces is awesome. What I'm saying is, we have just had the first weekend of pre-releases. So, essentially, this is the lowest supply of Temporal Forces we're ever going to see. There will never be fewer packs of Temporal Forces being opened while people are trying to sell cards. And if you add into that, the hype is at basically maximum levels. This is about as big as the hype gets because the cards are being opened and people are seeing the cards are being opened, and that is making people want these cards. And the problem with that is that we want the cards, and there aren't many cards out there, and you see how this becomes a little bit of a problem. And this is a part of the video where a bunch of you are thinking, yeah, we'll see, but come on, mate. People aren't actually spending that much money on the cards, are they? And I'm here to tell you, yes. Yes, they are. And show you why they definitely won't be in a few weeks' time. So Bianca, that's one of the big cards that we saw coming around in this set over in Japan. If you have a look at, the big cards from the Japanese equivalent sets, you will notice that Bianca's Devotion was absolutely the biggest card. All right? Anyone want to guess what people have been paying for this? What some of the solds have actually come out for? Now, the good news is, it's not actually been ridiculous. It's almost like people have been learning. Because you know what? $75, $60. That's not actually ridiculous. If you look at some of the pre-sale prices we have had for full art supporters, these special illustration rare supporters, I should say, over the past few sets, pre-sale of $75 seems extremely cheap. Ridiculously cheap, even. And, the one Morty's Conviction that sold was basically $40. There's $5 shipping there, so I'm calling it $40. So, you know what? That seems entirely reasonable. That seems fine. Here's the thing, though. These are still massively overpriced. They look fine because they don't have the ridiculous prices that we have been seeing for some other stuff recently, which is lovely. But, I don't know, let's just take Ino as an example again. Ino is the #1 supporter card in the game in terms of value. And it's fallen down to about an $80 card. This is the top card, all right? This is the, oh my goodness, I have pulled the best special illustration rare supporter around, okay? And that is a $75, $80 card. And it's a staple in basically every deck. And Bianca's fine. But Bianca's probably not as popular as Ino, and it's definitely not as playable as Ino. And does anyone actually think Bianca is going to end up at Ino levels? $75 might be way better than the ridiculous pre-sale prices we've been seeing for the past, couple of years. But it's ridiculous. Take Penny as an example. Penny is a great comparison here, okay? Because Penny is a card that has beautiful artwork and sees a little bit of play here and there. It's an Okacheke card. Now, it actually released just over a year ago, so TCG Player won't show you the pre-sale prices. Luckily, I will. And I can show you that back in March, i.e. around about pre-releases, this was a $55 card, which again seems pretty reasonable. Look at the last year on TCG Player. It's a $5 card. So you can look at that $35, $40 Morty, it's really $40 with postage. You can look at that $40 Morty and be like, Wassy, come on, mate. $40 as a pre-sale, that ain't bad, buddy, that ain't bad at all. And, yeah, okay. Penny's a $5 card. Remember how Miriam was the first of the special illustration rare supporters in the Pokemon era? That was ridiculous. It was the big card in Scarlet and Violet over in Japan, and the hype when it came over here was real. Yes, I've got a picture of what happened around about the same time over on eBay. People were legitimately spending $250 on Miriam. This is what I mean by the ridiculous pre-sale prices. Miriam was being sold for $250. It is now a $25 card. It has come down to 10% of its initial value. Bearing in mind, Miriam, aside from Ino, probably the most hyped special illustration rare supporter we have had in the Scarlet and Violet era. It's now a $25 card. Morty's Conviction is nowhere near there. And you're telling me I'm spending $40 on it pre-sale? Nah, mate. But the coolest thing about Temporal Forces are these special illustration rares. They're amazing. Let's take Iron Crown as an example. Yeah, it's selling for around about $100, and actually it's been worse than that. There was one that actually sold for $140. That's ridiculous. Again, the pre-sale prices for Pokemon right now should all be honestly pretty good. Like, nobody should be spending lots of money on pre-sale prices for Pokemon. We got a couple years of data at this point that tell us these Pokemon cards are not going to be ridiculous. And look, Iron Crown, great card. There is no argument about how good Iron Crown is. The art is amazing. I adore the art on Iron Crown. And it's got that redonkulous ability that says you can do an extra 20 damage for all of your future Pokemon's attacks. No argument about how good Iron Crown is as a card. It is very clearly a great, great card. We don't have good scans at the moment, so I'm going to take them off of eBay. My apologies. But $100 odd, $140, the first sold was $140. And look, I've said this before, if you're buying the first one so that you can be the first one to get it graded and try and flip it, I get that. It's not the kind of thing I would personally want to do, but I understand that. I understand why people would want to do that. That makes sense to me. $140 for this card when it's not even tournament legal yet? No. And again, we can look at very similar kind of things. But honestly, let's look at Charizard. Like right now, if you're looking at special illustration rares, the absolute biggest one around is Charizard EX. The one from Paldean Face. It is somewhere in the region of, well, it's fallen down quite significantly, but it's currently sitting at around about $115 card. This is the number one special illustration rare supporter. And it's a Charizard, and Charizard is the best deck in the game right now. That's true post-rotation, incidentally. There's different ways to measure. It didn't win the Big Japan Champions League, but it has been the most represented deck in City Leagues literally since we rotated, so I'm going to leave that one up to you. The point is, it's a Charizard which always gives massive price inflation, and the artwork is beyond stunning by Akira Igawa, and it's redonkulously playable, and it's a $115 card. Iron Crown is not there. There is no way, shape, or form that Iron Crown is actually there. And look, if we compare this to, say, Iron Hands, very good card, very playable card. $25 special illustration rare. And that's actually gone up in the past kind of couple of weeks. If anyone's wondering why it's gone up in the past couple of weeks, the answer is probably because we're looking at results coming out of Japan, and Iron Hands is actually getting a lot of hype right now. So that would kind of explain it. Also, weirdly, does he play with Iron Crown, which is lovely. But again, if we have a look at Iron Hands, And look, don't get me wrong, right? The artwork is not as good as on Iron Crown. Iron Crown is probably going to end up being a little more expensive. I get that. But Iron Hand's a $25 card. It dropped down to a $20 card. I could imagine Iron Crown being a $30, maybe a $40 card. $100 card? No. And that's the thing. We don't need to guess as to what's going to happen to these prices. We can look at some games, like One Piece, it's a little bit more difficult. One Piece, in a recent set in OPO5, they had Manga Luffy. And that card has defied expectations, and the pre-sale prices were ridiculous, and then it just kept jumping, and we're like, oh, cheers for that. We don't get that in Pokemon. It hasn't happened for a long time, and there's nothing in this set that would seem to be bucking the trend. What we've got are a bunch of really good special illustration rare Pokemon and a bunch of really good special illustration rare supporters that are massively too expensive and will be dropping down in price greatly. I have made no secret of the fact that I think Raging Bolt is the best card artwork-wise in the set. This is my chase card for the set. I think the special illustration rare Raging Bolt is redonkadonk, and I think it's amazing, and I will have this card. I am 100% buying the single of this card because it is absolutely stunning and beautiful, and this and Iron Boulder are my two favourite of the Paradox Pokemon. But $80, it's a decently playable card. It's seen some play in Japan, not as much as Iron Crown, and the artwork is absolutely amazing. But again, remember I told you Penny was an amazing card? That's Okacheke, is my favourite artist. I will never own the Japanese version of this Penny. Way too expensive. Wish I could. Can't afford it. I have made peace with that. But I could go and buy a lot of the English versions now for $5. On release, no way. No way I was paying $50 plus for this card. Nowadays, picking up for $5, yeah, I'll do that. I'm going to be back when Raging Bolt's like a $20, $30 card. And I have every faith that it will be. And when that happens, I'm going to come back and pick it up and buy it, and I'm going to be absolutely delighted. For now, I've told you this before, and I'll probably end up telling you again in the future, hold your horses, it's going to get cheaper. And there is, and this is probably the most important one of these I've done for a while. Because right now, there's going to be a whole bunch of people who are looking at these pre-sale prices and going, these are the best pre-sale prices we've seen in ages. And they are, incidentally. They absolutely are. That just means that the final prices are going to drop down and be even cheaper. I've already seen a bunch of people celebrating the lower pre-sale prices and pre-release prices, and that's wonderful, don't get me wrong, I'm loving it. But I am really worried that some people are going to see this and go, that means I don't have to wait. And yes, you do. And by you do, obviously, just to be super clear, friendly advice on your old pal Wassy, nothing more. If you want to pick them up, pick them up. You don't need a reason. Your reason can be, I can afford this card and I want this card. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I am here to tell you what's happening with prices and to give you what I believe to be very sensible predictions for what is very likely to happen in the very near future. There we go. That's what you need to know. And now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about these cards. Tell me what your chase cards are for the set. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, and all kinds of fun things. Oh, and get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Kanto Royalty, who's been a supporter of ours for a long time now, and is a very lovely person. So shout-outs to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.